A child stands before two doors, one marked sacred, the other right. Behind the sacred door waits a priest demanding blind faith. Behind the right door, silence. The child reaches for sacred, as we all did once. We traded our moral compass for a holy book, our conscience for commandments, our inner voice for an outer authority that claimed to speak for the divine itself. But what if morality existed long before the first temple was built, before the first prophet claimed divine revelation, before humanity ever needed saving from itself? Tonight, we descend into the labyrinth where ethics and dogma wrestle in shadows, where ancient wisdom meets quantum consciousness, where your soul remembers what institutions made you forget. In the beginning was not the Word. In the beginning was the choice, and that choice belonged to you, written in the quantum field of consciousness itself. Archaeological evidence shows humans practicing burial rituals, caring for disabled members, and displaying empathy 300,000 years before organized religion emerged. Morality preceded Moses by millennia. The Great Theft began slowly. Tribal shamans who once served community needs transformed into priestly classes who claimed exclusive access to divine will and moral truth. They whispered, "Without us, you are lost. Without our laws, you become beasts. Without our salvation, you burn forever." The greatest marketing campaign in human history. But quantum mechanics reveals something unsettling. Consciousness appears to be fundamental to reality itself, suggesting moral intuition might be hardwired into the fabric of existence. Indigenous cultures worldwide developed remarkably similar ethical principles: reciprocity, compassion, justice, despite zero contact. Was this convergent evolution of conscience or something deeper calling from within? The hijacking accelerated when Constantine weaponized Christianity, transforming a radical message of love into an empire's tool of control. Morality became statecraft wrapped in sanctity. Medieval priests convinced peasants that suffering was noble, poverty was holy, and questioning authority was sin. Meanwhile, Vatican coffers overflowed with gold stolen from the poor. They taught you to fear your own judgment, to distrust your inner voice, to believe that without their guidance, you would surely choose evil. But here's what they never told you. Every moral breakthrough in human history came from individuals who defied religious orthodoxy, not from those who obeyed it. Galileo's heliocentrism challenged biblical cosmology. Darwin's evolution shattered creation myths. Both expanded our moral understanding by revealing deeper truths about our place in existence. The abolition of slavery required believers to ignore explicit biblical endorsements of human bondage. Women's suffrage demanded defying Paul's commands for female submission and silence. Civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. succeeded not by following all religious teachings, but by emphasizing universal love while rejecting denominational prejudices. Each time, the faithful were told that moral progress would lead to chaos, that questioning Scripture would unleash hell on earth. Instead, it unleashed heaven. Modern neuroscience reveals that moral reasoning activates the prefrontal cortex, the same region involved in creativity, empathy, and complex problem-solving. Morality appears to be computational, not commanded. Children as young as 3 display innate fairness preferences and empathetic responses without any religious instruction. The moral sense seems to emerge naturally from consciousness itself. Meanwhile, religious indoctrination often suppresses this natural moral development. replacing intuitive ethics with arbitrary rules that serve institutional power rather than human flourishing. Consider the Catholic Church's systematic protection of child abusers while condemning consensual love between adults. Which serves morality and which serves the institution? Observe how evangelical leaders accumulate vast wealth while preaching poverty as virtue. Notice how they condemn others' sins while excusing their own. The pattern repeats across cultures. They've convinced billions that moral behavior requires external validation from ancient texts written by men who knew nothing of neuroscience, psychology, or human rights. But quantum entanglement suggests consciousness might be non-locally connected across space and time. Perhaps moral intuition taps into this universal field of awareness. The mystics knew this. From Buddha's enlightenment to Jesus' wilderness revelation, breakthrough spiritual insights always emphasized inner knowing over external authority. Yet their followers invariably created institutions that betrayed these very insights, building hierarchies that claim to own what cannot be possessed, direct access to truth. Rumi wrote of finding God in his own heart. The Sufis spoke of divine spark within every soul. The Gnostics proclaimed that salvation comes through knowledge, not faith. All were persecuted by orthodox believers who feared that individual spiritual autonomy would threaten clerical power. They were right to fear, it does. Today's conspiracy theorists sometimes stumble toward truth when they question religious authority, but often fall into different traps of groupthink and external validation. The real conspiracy isn't hidden in shadows, it's performed openly in every pulpit, where congregants are told their conscience cannot be trusted. Organized religion's greatest trick wasn't convincing people God exists. It was convincing them that God speaks exclusively through religious institutions rather than directly to individual consciousness. This hijacking creates moral dysfunction on massive scales. Believers commit atrocities while feeling righteous because their actions align with religious authority rather than ethical intuition. The Crusades, Inquisition, witch trials, and modern terrorism all share this pattern. Individuals disconnected from innate empathy, following external commands they believe are divinely sanctioned. But something is awakening. Spiritual seekers increasingly bypass organized religion, finding meaning through direct experience, meditation, psychedelics, and quantum consciousness exploration. They're discovering what shamans and mystics always knew, that moral wisdom emerges from expanded awareness, not from submitting to institutional dogma. Near-death experiences consistently report encounters with beings of pure love who judge by compassion shown, not creeds followed or rules obeyed. Psychedelic research reveals profound moral insights emerging from states where ego dissolves and universal connection becomes viscerally real. No priests required. Quantum field theory suggests reality might be fundamentally informational. Consciousness, interacting with possibility to collapse potential into experience. We participate in creating reality through awareness. If consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent, then moral intuition might access deeper layers of information than doctrine written by ancient humans with limited understanding. The religious response is predictable. They'll claim Satan deceives through these experiences, that only their interpretation provides truth, that questioning leads to damnation. Notice how this strategy works. First, they install fear of independent thinking, then position themselves as the only safe authority. Classic cult psychology. But what if the real blasphemy is denying the divine spark within yourself? What if the true sin is surrendering your moral autonomy to human institutions? Ancient Gnostic texts suppressed by early Christianity taught that each person contains divine essence and can access truth directly without priestly intermediation. These teachings threatened hierarchical power structures, so they were branded heretical and their followers massacred. Winners write history, including religious history. The Dead Sea Scrolls revealed that early Christianity was far more diverse than Orthodox accounts suggest, with competing visions of Jesus' teachings and humanity's spiritual nature. Many early Christian communities practiced gender equality, democratic decision-making, and personal revelation, values that challenge contemporary evangelical and Catholic orthodoxy. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE essentially voted on which version of Christianity would become official. Divine truth, determined by political majority among male bishops. They chose texts that supported imperial power structures while rejecting gospels that emphasized personal spiritual authority. The hijacking was complete. For centuries afterward, possessing banned texts meant death. Libraries burned, scholars murdered, the archive of human spiritual exploration systematically destroyed. Yet the suppressed wisdom survived in hidden traditions: Kabbalah, Sufism, Christian mysticism, Buddhist meditation, practices that bypass institutional control through direct experience. Today's spiritual renaissance represents humanity reclaiming what was stolen: the right to explore consciousness directly, to trust inner knowing, to develop ethics through experience rather than indoctrination. Modern moral philosophy confirms what mystics always knew. Ethical behavior emerges from expanded empathy and rational consideration, not from obeying commands. Utilitarian calculus, deontological reasoning, virtue ethics, and care ethics all depend on human consciousness, engaging with moral problems directly rather than consulting external authorities. Meanwhile, religious morality often produces ethically horrific outcomes: genital mutilation, honor killings, gay conversion therapy, medical treatment denial, defended as divine will. The institutions that claim moral authority demonstrate consistent patterns of corruption, abuse, and hypocrisy that would shame any secular organization. Yet billions continue following leaders who wouldn't qualify for basic background checks at schools or hospitals, simply because they claim religious authority. Stockholm Syndrome explains part of this phenomenon: victims defending their captors. But spiritual Stockholm Syndrome runs deeper, affecting core identity and worldview. Breaking free requires immense courage, because religious programming attacks the foundation of selfhood, convincing people they're inherently corrupt without institutional salvation. But quantum consciousness research suggests the opposite: that awareness itself might be the fundamental creative principle underlying all existence, making you inherently divine. Meditation traditions worldwide report similar discoveries. Beneath conditioned thoughts lies pure awareness that contains infinite wisdom, compassion, and creative potential. This awareness doesn't need salvation because it never fell. It doesn't require forgiveness because it never sinned. It doesn't need guidance because it is guidance itself. Religious institutions fear this recognition because empowered individuals create voluntary communities based on love rather than mandatory hierarchies based on fear and guilt. The future of morality lies not in returning to ancient texts, but in evolving beyond them, integrating timeless wisdom with expanding scientific understanding of consciousness. Artificial intelligence might soon surpass human moral reasoning in certain domains, forcing us to confront what makes ethics uniquely conscious rather than merely computational. Perhaps morality requires subjective experience, the felt sense of suffering and joy that motivates compassionate action, something no institution can provide or control. Your capacity for love, empathy, justice, and wisdom doesn't depend on believing correct doctrines or following proper rituals. It depends on consciousness itself. Every moment offers a choice. Trust the voice within that connects you to universal compassion, or obey external authorities who benefit from your spiritual dependency. The hijacking continues only because you allow it. The moment you reclaim your moral sovereignty, their power dissolves like shadows before dawn. The divine speaks through your conscience, not through institutions that profit from your silence. Listen carefully. That quiet voice has been waiting for your return home.